Amara Bennett was counting down the days until she had enough money to disappear. At 24, she worked as a maid in one of the most exclusive estates in the city, scrubbing floors and polishing silver for people who never looked at her twice. She was invisible, and she preferred it that way. Invisible meant safe. But on a Thursday morning in late summer, when the makeup failed to cover the swelling on her cheekbone, and she had to use a bandage instead, invisibility became impossible. Because Han Jae-won, the Korean crime boss who owned the estate, noticed everything. And once he noticed her, everything changed. The Han estate sat behind 12-foot walls in the kind of neighborhood where even the air felt expensive. Amara had been working there for 6 months, ever since she'd answered an ad for domestic staff that promised good pay and discretion. She needed both. The pay was better than anything she'd found in her 2 years since moving to the city, $2,800 a month plus meals during her shifts. It wasn't enough to live comfortably, but it was enough to save. She had $4,200 hidden in an account Derek didn't know about. She needed $8,000. $8,000 would get her a deposit on a new apartment in a different part of the city, first and last month's rent, enough to disappear before Derek realized she was gone. Derek Morrison had seemed charming when they'd met at a friend's barbecue 18 months ago. Attentive, funny, interested in her dreams of going to culinary school someday. The first time he'd grabbed her wrist hard enough to bruise, she'd told herself it was an accident. He'd been drinking. He'd apologized. The second time, 3 weeks later, he'd shoved her into a wall during an argument about money. That time, he'd blamed her for provoking him. By the time she realized what was happening, she was trapped. He'd moved into her apartment, taken over her lease, isolated her from friends. Every dollar she earned went into a joint account he monitored. Except for the money she skimmed from tips, from selling her jewelry piece by piece, from taking on extra cleaning jobs she never told him about. Those dollars went into her secret account, her escape fund. Working at the Han estate had been a blessing in that regard. The staff was large enough that she could blend in, and the schedule was predictable. She arrived at 7 in the morning, worked until 4 in the afternoon, and left before Derek got home from his construction job. Most days, she never saw Han Jae-won at all. He was a shadow in his own house, a presence felt rather than seen. The other maids whispered about him, about the dark suits that cost more than their monthly salaries, about the men who visited late at night and left before dawn, about the security that looked more like a private army than household staff. Amara didn't ask questions. She kept her head down, did her work, and collected her paycheck. She was good at being invisible. She wore her natural hair in simple protective braids that never drew attention. She kept her uniform pressed and her movements quiet. She spoke only when spoken to, which was almost never. The estate had 20 staff members, and she was the newest, the lowest in the hierarchy. She cleaned the parts of the house the family didn't use, polished silver that never saw a dinner table, dusted furniture in rooms that stayed empty. It was lonely work, but lonely was safe. Until the Thursday morning, when everything changed. She'd woken up at 5:30, same as always, and felt the swelling before she opened her eyes. Derek had come home drunk the night before, angry about something at work, needing someone to blame. The first blow had caught her off guard. The second had been deliberate. She'd learned not to fight back, to go still and wait for it to be over. This morning, the right side of her face was swollen and discolored, the cheekbone tender to the touch. She'd sat at her bathroom mirror for 40 minutes, layering concealer and foundation, trying to hide the evidence. It wasn't working. The swelling was too pronounced, the skin too tight. She'd used a bandage in the end, a small square of white adhesive that covered the worst of it. If anyone asked, she'd say she'd walked into a cabinet door. Clumsy Amara, always running into things. It was the same lie she'd told the urgent care doctor 6 months ago, the same lie she'd told her mother on their weekly phone calls. Her mother, who lived 3 states away and sent worried texts that Amara deflected with cheerful responses about how good everything was going. The estate was quiet when she arrived at 7, the morning sun just starting to burn off the mist that clung to the manicured grounds. She parked her beat-up Toyota in the staff lot behind the garage, a row of luxury vehicles visible through the open bay doors. Mercedes, Bentley, a sleek black Audi that belonged to Han Jae-won himself. She hurried past them, swiping her key card at the staff entrance and making her way to the service corridors that ran through the house like hidden veins. Her assignment that morning was the third-floor offices, the private spaces where Han Jiwen conducted his business. Usually, he didn't arrive until 9, which gave her 2 hours to clean undisturbed. She liked these rooms despite their severity. They were simpler than the ornate public spaces, all dark wood and leather, expensive but understated. His office especially felt like a sanctuary, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds, built-in bookshelves lined with volumes in Korean and English, a massive desk that held only a laptop and a single pen. She was dusting the bookshelves when she heard the door open behind her. Her heart stopped. She turned slowly, instinctively raising her hand to touch the bandage on her face, then dropping it when she realized the gesture only drew more attention. Han Jiwen stood in the doorway, and for the first time in 6 months, he was looking directly at her. He was everything the other maids whispered about. Tall, maybe 6 feet, with the kind of presence that made the spacious office feel smaller. He wore a dark suit that fit like it had been made for him, because it probably had been. His face was all sharp lines and controlled intensity, dark eyes that missed nothing, dark hair swept back with the kind of precision that suggested discipline in every aspect of his life. He looked maybe late 30s, though it was hard to tell. There was something ageless about his stillness, and he was staring at the bandage on her face. The silence stretched. Amara's hands trembled as she clutched the dusting cloth. She should say something. Apologize for being there when he arrived early. Excuse herself. But her throat had closed, and all she could do was stand there while his gaze tracked from the bandage to her eyes and back again. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost soft, but there was steel underneath. Who did that to you? It wasn't a question. It was a demand. Amara's mind raced. She'd prepared for this, had her lie ready. I'm clumsy, Mr. Han. I walked into a cabinet door last night. Wasn't paying attention. Stupid, really. The words came out in a rush, too quick, too defensive. His expression didn't change. His dark eyes held hers for another long moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see through her skin, see every lie she'd ever told, every bruise she'd ever hidden. I see, he said finally. Then he crossed to his desk, sat down, opened his laptop, dismissing her without another word. Amara's legs felt weak as she gathered her supplies and left the office. She made it to the staff bathroom before her hands started shaking in earnest. She pressed her palms against the cool marble sink and stared at her reflection. The bandage looked stark and obvious against her warm brown skin. She'd been so careful. 6 months of being invisible, and one stupid bandage had ruined everything. She told herself it didn't matter. He was a busy man. He probably wouldn't even remember her face by tomorrow. She was just the maid. But something about the way he'd looked at her, the way his jaw had tightened when she'd lied, made her think he remembered everything. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of anxiety. She cleaned on autopilot, dusting and polishing and vacuuming while her mind spun with worst-case scenarios. What if he fired her? She couldn't afford to lose this job. What if he told Derek? No, that didn't make sense. Why would a crime boss care about her boyfriend? What if he'd seen something in her face that made him suspicious, made him start asking questions about the maid who showed up with injuries? Have you ever worked somewhere where you felt invisible, where you were just going through the motions trying to survive? Maybe you were in a situation where you had to keep your head down, where being noticed felt dangerous. That's where Amara was, trapped between needing the job and needing to stay hidden. But invisibility only works until someone decides to really see you. By the time 4 o'clock came, Amara was exhausted. She changed out of her uniform in the staff locker room, pulled on jeans and a long-sleeved shirt despite the summer heat, and headed for the parking lot. Her car was an old Toyota with a dent in the passenger door and a check engine light that had been on for 3 months. It started on the 3rd try. She drove home on autopilot, her mind still replaying that moment in the office. Who did that to you? The way he'd looked at her. The way he'd known she was lying. Her apartment was in a converted warehouse building 20 minutes from the estate, the kind of place where the rent was cheap because the neighborhood was rough. She and Derek shared a 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor, and she could hear his music through the door before she even reached it. He was home early. Her stomach clenched. The next few hours passed the way they always did when Derek had been drinking before she got home. He wanted dinner. She cooked. He complained about work. She listened. He wanted to know where she'd been, why she was late, who she'd been talking to. She answered carefully, keeping her voice calm, defusing where she could. He noticed the bandage and got angry all over again, accusing her of making him look bad, of advertising their business to strangers. She apologized, said she'd be more careful with makeup next time. Eventually, he passed out on the couch, and she was able to retreat to the bedroom. She lay in the dark and counted her money in her head. $4,200 saved. $3,800 to go. At her current rate, she could save about $500 a month. 8 more months. She could survive 8 more months. She'd survived 18 already. But that night, for the first time, she thought about Han Jaiwon's voice. Who did that to you? And the way he'd looked at her when she lied. Like he knew. Like he cared. She told herself it was nothing. He was a criminal, for God's sake. He probably hurt people for a living. Why would he care about one maid with a bruised face? But sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, she dreamed of dark eyes that saw everything, and a quiet voice asking questions she didn't know how to answer. Han Jaiwon sat in his office long after the maid had left, staring at the bookshelf she'd been dusting when he'd walked in. He told himself it was routine concern. Staff welfare was important for maintaining loyalty and discretion. If one of his employees was being abused, it created vulnerabilities. Angry boyfriends caused scenes. Police reports created paper trails. It was a security issue, nothing more. He was lying to himself, and he knew it. Something about the way she'd touched that bandage, the way her hand had fluttered up and then dropped like she'd been caught doing something wrong, had triggered a memory he kept carefully buried. His cousin Hannah, 15 years old, wearing long sleeves in summer. Making excuses, lying with the same desperate edge in her voice. By the time the family had understood what was happening, it was too late. Her boyfriend had killed her in a jealous rage, and Jaiwon had been too focused on building his empire to notice she needed help. He picked up his phone and called his head of security. "I need a background check on one of the staff," he said when Lee Min answered. "Amara Bennett. Everything. Family, finances, living situation, known associates. I want it by end of day." Lee Min was too professional to ask questions, but Jaiwon heard the pause. "Yes, sir. Any particular concerns?" "Just be thorough," Jaiwon replied, and ended the call. He told himself it was protocol. He didn't quite believe it. Over the next 3 days, Han Jaiwon found himself doing something he'd never done before. He paid attention to the maid. It wasn't obvious. He didn't seek her out or change his routine, but he became aware of her presence in a way he'd never been aware of any staff member. He noticed that she arrived every morning at exactly 7, the first of the day's shift, to clock in. He noticed that she left at precisely 4, never staying late, never socializing with the other staff in the break room. She moved through the house like a ghost, efficient and silent, and he realized she'd made an art of being invisible. He also noticed the long sleeves despite the August heat. The way she flinched when one of the male security guards walked past her too quickly. The careful way she held herself, like her body was made of bruises. On the second day, he saw a new bandage, this one on her wrist, partially visible when her sleeve rode up as she reached to clean a high shelf. She caught him looking and pulled the sleeve down immediately, her dark eyes wide with something like fear before she ducked her head and hurried away. On the third day, Lee Min delivered the report. Jaiwon read it in his office with the door closed. The facts were straightforward and damning. Amara Bennett, 24 years old. No criminal record. Employed at the estate for 6 months with perfect attendance and no complaints. Before that, a series of service jobs, waitressing mostly, none lasting more than a year. She lived with Derek Morrison, 29, construction worker. Morrison had 2 prior arrests for domestic violence. Both charges dropped when the victims declined to press charges. Current neighbors at their apartment building had called the police 4 times in the past 14 months for noise complaints and suspected domestic disturbance. Each time, Amara had told responding officers everything was fine. The financial records told another story. Amara had a joint checking account with Morrison that showed her direct deposits from the estate and immediate withdrawals, usually by Morrison. But she also had a savings account in her name only, opened 7 months ago. Weekly deposits, small amounts, $50 here, $80 there. The current balance was $4,200. She was saving to run. Jaiwon set the report down and stared out the window at the manicured grounds. He should leave it alone. It wasn't his business. She was just an employee. If she wanted to leave her boyfriend, that was her decision to make. But he kept seeing Hannah's face, kept hearing her voice making excuses, kept remembering the funeral, the waste of a life barely begun. He picked up his phone again. "Have someone watch her when she leaves today," he told Lee Min discreetly. "I want to know where she goes, who she sees, if anyone approaches her. And give me a full background on Derek Morrison. Criminal history, employment, known associates, everything." There was a longer pause this time. "Sir, if I may ask, what exactly are we concerned about here?" "Just do it," Jaiwan said, and hated how defensive he sounded. Thursday evening arrived with the weight of a storm about to break. Jaiwan was in his study reviewing financial reports when he heard the commotion at the service entrance. Raised voices, one of them slurring drunk. His security team attempting to de-escalate. And underneath it all, a woman's voice trying to sound calm, but edged with panic. He was moving before he made a conscious decision, taking the back stairs two at a time. The service entrance opened onto a small courtyard where staff parked and deliveries were made. Two of his security guards had positioned themselves in front of a man Jaiwan recognized from the surveillance photos. Derek Morrison, swaying slightly, reeking of alcohol even from 10 feet away. And behind the guards, Amara, her face pale and her hands clenched at her sides. "What's going on here?" Jaiwan said, his voice cutting through the noise. Everyone turned. His guard straightened. Morrison squinted at him with the belligerence of a drunk looking for a fight. And Amara looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her. "This gentleman is asking for Ms. Bennett," one of the guards said carefully. "We've explained that staff are not permitted personal visitors on the property." "She's my girlfriend," Morrison slurred, pointing at Amara. "She's coming with me." Now, Amara stepped forward, her voice tight with forced calm. "It's fine. I'll handle this. Please, just let him go. I'll leave with him. It's fine." But it clearly wasn't fine. Her whole body was rigid with tension, her breathing shallow. She was afraid. Jaiwan moved into the courtyard, and his security guard stepped aside automatically. He stopped a few feet from Morrison, close enough to smell the whiskey, far enough to stay out of grabbing range. "You're on my property uninvited," Jaiwan said quietly. "That ends now." Morrison tried to puff himself up, but drunk and off balance, he mostly just wavered. "Who the hell are you?" "This is between me and my girl. Amara works for me," Jaiwan replied, his voice dropping even lower. "That makes it my business. You have 30 seconds to leave, or my security will remove you. If you return, you'll be arrested for trespassing." Morrison's face twisted with anger. "You can't do that. She's my girlfriend. We live together. You can't just keep her here." "Watch me," Jaiwan said, and something in his tone, some quality of absolute certainty, made Morrison take a stumbling step back. "This isn't over," Morrison spat, pointing at Amara. "You think you can hide here? I know where you work now. I'll be back. And you're coming home with me." Jaiwan gestured to his guards. "Escort Mr. Morrison off the property. If he resists, call the police and have him arrested for trespassing and public intoxication. If he returns, same thing. Make sure he understands this clearly." The guards moved in, professional and efficient, and Morrison was being walked toward the gate before he could formulate another protest. Jaiwan watched until the man was out of sight, then turned to Amara. She was shaking, trembling so hard her teeth were chattering despite the warm evening. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and she looked like she was about to collapse or bolt. He couldn't tell which. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He'll be worse now. You don't understand. He'll be so much worse. Come with me," Jaiwan said. "We need to talk." "I need to go," she said, backing toward her car. "I need to go home before he gets there. I need to explain. I need to smooth this over. If I can just talk to him when he's calmer." "You're not going anywhere near him tonight," Jaiwan interrupted. "Come to my office." Now, it wasn't a request. His tone made that clear. And Amara, exhausted and terrified and out of options, followed him. The walk through the house to his private office was silent. Amara's footsteps were unsteady, and twice Jaiwan slowed his pace so she could keep up. He could feel the fear radiating off her, could see the way her hands trembled as she clutched her car keys like a talisman. His office felt different with her in it. Smaller, maybe, or just more charged. He gestured to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. "Sit." She perched on the edge, looking ready to run. He poured her a glass of water from the bar in the corner, set it in front of her. She didn't touch it. How long? He asked, settling into his own chair. She didn't pretend not to understand. 8 months, she said quietly. It started small. Jealousy, controlling behavior. Then it got worse. And you're saving money to leave. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. How did you? I have resources, Jaiwan said simply. I needed to understand the situation. You have $4,200 saved. You need more before you feel safe leaving. Am I correct? She nodded slowly, and he could see her recalibrating, understanding that he knew everything, that there was no point in lying anymore. He'll come back, she said. Tonight. Tomorrow. He knows where I work now. He'll make scenes. He'll get me fired. And then I'll have nothing. I'll have to go back to him. She was spiraling, her voice rising with panic. You shouldn't have interfered. I had a plan. I just needed a few more months. You wouldn't have made it a few more months, Jaiwan interrupted, his voice hard. Men like Derek escalate. I've seen this before. The violence gets worse. The control gets tighter. Eventually, you don't leave. You get carried out. The blunt words hit her like a slap. She stared at him, and he saw the moment she recognized the truth in what he was saying. Saw her acknowledge what she'd been denying to herself. I had a cousin, Jaiwan said quietly. Younger than me. Sweet girl. She met a man who seemed nice at first. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late. He killed her. I was too busy building my empire to notice she needed help. I won't make that mistake again. The office was silent except for the sound of Amara's breathing, fast and shallow. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, and she didn't seem to notice. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have enough money. My lease is in his name. If I leave, I lose everything. And he'll find me. He always says he'll find me. Jaiwan leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Then don't leave. Stay here. She blinked at him, confused. What? Stay here, he repeated. I'm offering you protection, employment, and a way out. But we do this properly. We do this in a way that ensures you're safe. Are you willing to listen to what I'm proposing? Amara stared at Han Jaiwan across the expanse of his mahogany desk, trying to make sense of what he'd just said. Stay here. The words didn't compute. She wiped at her face with the back of her hand, aware that she probably looked terrible, crying in front of her employer, the powerful crime boss who should have no reason to care whether she lived or died. I don't understand, she managed. Stay here how? Jaiwan stood and moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid. He brought one to her, pressed it into her hand. Drink. It'll help. She took a sip and nearly choked. Whiskey, expensive and burning. But he was right. It helped. The heat of it cut through the panic, grounded her back in her body. He returned to his chair, took a measured sip from his own glass, and when he spoke, his voice had the quality of a business negotiation. Calm. Precise. Laying out terms. I'm going to make you an offer, he said. You're free to refuse, but I need you to hear me out completely before you decide. Can you do that? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Your current situation is untenable, he continued. You're earning $2,800 a month, most of which Derek has access to. You're trying to save enough to escape, but at your current rate, you're looking at 8 more months minimum. You won't survive that long. Derek will escalate. Tonight proved that. He knows where you work. He'll continue to make scenes, and eventually, either he'll succeed in dragging you back, or he'll seriously hurt you in the process. Those are the facts. Amara couldn't argue. Everything he said was true. So here's what I'm proposing, Jaiwan said, leaning back in his chair, his dark eyes never leaving her face. I'm offering you a position in my household, not as general staff, as my personal household manager. You would oversee the domestic staff, coordinate my schedule, manage my personal spaces and requirements. You would report directly to me, and only to me. She started, then stopped. That's not a real job. You already have people who do that. I do, he agreed. But I'm creating this position specifically for you. I need someone I can trust in my private spaces. Someone who understands discretion. Someone who has already proven they can be invisible when necessary, but who I also know can be competent and reliable. She felt like she was missing something. Why? Why me? Because I see potential in you that's being wasted. Because you work harder than anyone else on my staff. And because I won't stand by and watch another woman die when I have the power to prevent it. The last words were spoken with such intensity that Amara felt them like a physical force. This was about his cousin, about his failure to save her, about his need to not fail again. What would this position pay? She asked quietly. $60,000 a year, Jaiwan said, and watched her eyes widen. That's $5,000 per month, paid directly to an account only you have access to. Non-negotiable. You'll also receive a private suite in the staff wing of the estate, fully furnished, with your own bathroom and sitting area. All meals provided. All living expenses covered. Amara's mind was reeling. $60,000 a year. That was more than double what she made now. That was life-changing money. But there was more. Jaiwan wasn't finished. Additionally, he said, I understand you send money to your mother. I looked into her situation. She's struggling with medical bills from a heart condition. I'll secure her a separate apartment in a safe neighborhood and cover her living expenses and medical care. She'll be taken care of. Amara's breath caught. You research my mother. I research everything that matters, he said simply. This is about ensuring your complete security. If you're worried about your mother, you won't be able to focus. If Derek knows where your mother lives, he has leverage over you. We remove that leverage. The scope of what he was offering was overwhelming. It wasn't just a job. It was a complete extraction from her current life. A reset button. What do you want in return? She asked, because nothing was free, especially not from a man like Han Jaiwan. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Respect, maybe, that she'd asked the right question. Several things, he said. First, you live on the property full-time. You don't leave without informing me or my security team of your location. This isn't about controlling you. It's about ensuring Derek can't get to you. If I don't know where you are, I can't protect you. She nodded slowly. That made sense, even if the thought of being confined made her anxious. Second, absolute loyalty. You'll see things in this house, hear things, learn things about my business. Nothing you see or hear leaves this property. You speak to no one about my affairs, my associates, my activities. Silence is not optional. It's survival. I understand, she said, and she did. She'd already guessed that Han Jaiwan wasn't running a legitimate enterprise. The security, the late-night meetings, the careful way everyone spoke around him. He was exactly what the staff whispered he was. A crime boss. And she would be agreeing to work for him, to keep his secrets, to become complicit in whatever he did. Third, he continued, you manage my household to my exact specifications. I have particular preferences. I value order, privacy, and efficiency. You'll learn what I need and ensure it's provided. This isn't a position where you can simply coast. I expect excellence. I can do that, Amara said, with more confidence than she felt. Fourth, and this is critical. He leaned forward, his intensity ratcheting up. If you betray my trust, if you speak about my business to authorities or rivals, if you compromise this household's security in any way, you lose everything. The salary, the housing, the protection, your mother's care. All of it gone. And you'll be on your own against whatever consequences come from that betrayal. Do you understand what I'm saying? She understood perfectly. He was offering her safety, but that safety came with a leash. Step out of line, and she'd be thrown to the wolves. Or worse. I understand, she said. Good. His posture relaxed slightly. The timeline for your decision is now. Derek will return to your apartment tonight. He'll find you gone. He'll destroy your belongings. He'll look for you. Every hour you delay is an hour he has to escalate, to rally his friends, to make this messier than it needs to be. I need your answer. Amara's mind was spinning. This was happening too fast. An hour ago she'd been finishing her shift, thinking about what to make for dinner, trying to calculate whether she could skim an extra $50 from this week's pay. Now she was sitting in a crime boss's office being offered a life raft that looked a lot like a cage. Can I ask a question? She said. Of course. Why are you really doing this? And don't say it's just about your cousin. This is too elaborate, too specific. There has to be more. Jaiwan was quiet for a long moment, studying her. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd heard it. You're right. It's not just about Hannah, though that's part of it. The truth is, I saw something in you that first day. The way you carried yourself despite the fear. The way you kept working even though you were clearly in pain. You didn't ask for help. You didn't make excuses. You just endured. That takes strength most people don't have. And I value strength, especially when it's been tested. So yes, I want to help you. But I also want someone like you in my household. Someone who understands survival, who understands loyalty through adversity. This arrangement benefits us both. Amara sat with that. It was honest in a way she hadn't expected. He wasn't pretending to be a savior. He was offering a transaction, protection and resources in exchange for service and silence. It was more honest than anything Derek had ever offered her. She looked down at the glass of whiskey in her hands, watching the amber liquid catch the light from the desk lamp. She thought about going home tonight, about Derek's rage, about the long months stretching ahead, trying to save enough to escape while the violence got worse, about her mother worrying 3 states away, struggling to pay for medications. She thought about this office, this estate, this dangerous man offering her a way out. It was a cage, but it was a gilded cage with locked doors that would keep Derek out. And maybe that was better than the prison she was already in. She looked up and met Han Jaiwan's steady gaze. If I accept, what happens tonight? Tonight, you become part of my household. I send a team to your apartment to collect your belongings, everything that matters to you. We file a restraining order against Derek that will be expedited through contacts I have in the legal system. Your mother is contacted and offered relocation assistance. You move into your suite here, and you're under my protection from this moment forward. And if I refuse, then you walk out of here, go home to Derek, and take your chances. I won't interfere again. You'll be on your own. The choice was stark, brutal in its clarity. Stay in hell or accept help from a devil. Amara took a deep breath. Then another. Her hands had stopped shaking. The panic that had been clawing at her chest all evening had settled into something calmer. Not peace exactly, but clarity. She set down the whiskey glass, straightened her spine, and looked at the man who was offering to own a piece of her life in exchange for saving it. I accept, she said, her voice steady. I accept your offer, Mr. Han. Something shifted in his expression. Not a smile exactly, but satisfaction. He stood, opened a desk drawer, and pulled out a phone, still in its packaging. Brand new. Expensive. This is yours, he said, sliding it across the desk. My personal number is already programmed. My security chief's number. The estate's main line. No one else. You don't give this number to anyone. You don't use your old phone anymore. From this moment, your communication goes through this device. She picked up the phone, felt the weight of it. Another symbol of how completely her life was changing. Stay here, Jaiwan said. I'm going to make the necessary calls. This will take approximately an hour. There's a bathroom through that door if you need it. Help yourself to food or drink from the bar. I'll return shortly. He left her alone in his office, and Amara sat in the leather chair holding a phone that cost more than her monthly rent, trying to process what she'd just agreed to. She'd just sold herself to a crime boss. That's what this was, wasn't it? She was trading freedom for safety, independence for protection. She would live where he told her to live, work how he told her to work, exist under his control and surveillance. But she would be alive. Her mother would be safe. Derek would never touch her again. She thought about the women at the domestic violence shelter she'd visited once, 6 months ago, before losing her nerve. The counselor had told her that leaving was the most dangerous time, that abusers escalated when they felt control slipping away, that women needed a safety plan, resources, support. Han Jaiwan was offering all of that. The fact that he was also a criminal, that his protection came from power built on violence and fear, should have bothered her more than it did. Maybe it would later. Maybe when the adrenaline faded and reality set in, she'd regret this choice. But right now, holding that phone, sitting in his office while he arranged for her rescue, Amara felt something she hadn't felt in 18 months. Hope. An hour later, exactly as promised, Jaiwan returned. Behind him came Li Min, his head of security, carrying a tablet. Everything is arranged, Jaiwan said. Li Min will brief you. The security chief was a man in his 50s, gray at the temples, with the bearing of someone who'd seen combat. He set the tablet on the desk and pulled up several documents. Ms. Bennett, he said, his tone respectful, we've dispatched a team to your apartment. They'll collect your belongings, anything of value or sentimental importance. If there are specific items you want to ensure we retrieve, list them now. Amara thought. There wasn't much. My grandmother's quilt. It's on the bed. A shoebox in the closet with photos. My laptop if it's still there. Everything else, I don't care about. Understood. Li Min made notes. The restraining order is being filed tonight. Judge Chin owes Mr. Han a favor. It'll be official by morning. We've also placed surveillance on Derek Morrison. If he approaches this property or attempts to contact you, we'll know immediately. What about my mother? Amara asked. We've made contact, Jiwen said. She's been informed that you're accepting a new position that includes relocation assistance for family members. She was hesitant at first, but once we explained that her medical expenses would be covered and she'd have a safer living situation, she agreed. She's relieved you're getting away from Derek. She's known all along, hasn't she? Amara's eyes burned. Yes, she knew. I couldn't hide it from her. She couldn't help. She had no resources to offer me. Now she does, Jiwen said simply. She'll be moved within the week. Li Min continued the briefing. Your suite is in the East Wing, 3rd floor. Private entrance, separate from the main staff quarters. I'll show you there once we're finished here. Starting tomorrow, you'll begin orientation. Learning Mr. Han's preferences, meeting key staff members, understanding the household operations. One more thing, Jiwen said. You don't go anywhere alone for the next month. Security detail will accompany you anytime you leave the property. This is non-negotiable. Derek will be looking for you. We don't give him opportunities. Amara nodded. She was too exhausted to argue, too overwhelmed by how quickly her life had just pivoted on its axis. Any questions? Jiwen asked. She had 1,000, but the one that came out was simple. Why are you being so thorough? This is more than just hiring household staff. This is witness protection level planning. Because I don't do things halfway, he replied. If I'm offering you protection, it's real protection. Complete. Permanent. I won't have Derek Morrison become a loose and that causes problems later. This is handled properly from the start, or not at all. Li Min excused himself, saying he'd wait outside to show her to her suite. Amara stood, legs unsteady, and faced Han Jiwen. Thank you, she said quietly. I don't know what else to say. Just, thank you. Don't thank me yet, he replied, but his tone wasn't unkind. This arrangement has expectations. Meet them, and we'll both benefit. Fail to meet them, and we'll both regret this decision. I'm trusting you, Amara. That's not something I do lightly. I won't let you down, she said, and meant it. He nodded, satisfied. Li Min will get you settled. Get some rest. Tomorrow your new life begins. She followed the security chief out of the office, through corridors she'd cleaned 100 times, but which looked different now. This wasn't the house she worked in anymore. This was the house she lived in. The house that would keep her safe. The house that now owned a piece of her soul. Her suite was beautiful. Spacious bedroom with a queen bed, attached bathroom with rainfall shower, a sitting area with a comfortable couch and armchair. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Furniture that was simple but expensive. It was 10 times nicer than anywhere she'd ever lived. It was also a cage. A beautiful, comfortable, safe cage. Li Min handed her a key card. This accesses your suite, the staff areas, and the main house. Mr. Han's private quarters are off limits unless you're specifically summoned. Questions? No, she said. Thank you. He left, and she was alone. Amara sat on the bed and looked around at her new life. She should feel relieved, grateful, safe. Instead, she felt terrified, because she'd just handed control of her life to a man she barely knew. A dangerous man, a criminal. But as she lay back on the softest mattress she'd ever felt, in a room with a lock on the door that would actually keep danger out, Amara thought maybe terrified and safe was better than the alternative. She fell asleep still fully clothed, exhausted beyond measure, and didn't dream at all. Amara woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and spent 3 confused seconds trying to remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The confrontation, the proposition, the decision that had changed everything. She sat up slowly, taking in the elegant bedroom that was now hers, and felt the weight of what she'd done settle over her like a blanket. Her phone, the new one Jiwen had given her, showed 6:30 in the morning. A text message waited from an unknown number that identified itself as Li Min's security line. Team retrieved your belongings from apartment at 0200 hours. Items in storage room off your suite. Derek Morrison returned at 0430, found empty apartment, significant property damage. Police called, he was arrested. Currently held on property destruction charges. You are secure. She read it twice, trying to process. Derek had destroyed the apartment. Of course he had. She'd seen his rages before, but never directed at property because it was his lease, his deposit at risk. Now, with her gone, he'd had nothing left to lose. The thought of what he might have done if she'd been there made her stomach turn. A soft knock at her door made her jump. "Yes," she called out. "Ms. Bennett," a woman's voice replied. "I'm bringing breakfast." Mr. Hahn's instructions. Amara opened the door to find one of the senior housekeepers, a woman named Mrs. Chun, holding a tray. Steam rose from covered dishes that smelled like heaven. Coffee, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pastries that looked bakery fresh. "Mr. Hahn asked that you join him for breakfast in his private dining room at 8, Mrs. Chun said, setting the tray on the sitting area table. "But he thought you might want something in your room first, to settle your nerves." "Thank you," Amara managed. The housekeeper's expression softened. "Welcome to the household, dear. Properly this time. We're glad Mr. Hahn is finally getting someone competent to manage things. The last coordinator was useless." After Mrs. Chun left, Amara sat with the breakfast tray and tried to eat. The food was exquisite, but her stomach was in knots. At 8 o'clock, she would have breakfast with Han Jiwon, not as a maid bringing him coffee, as whatever she was now, his household manager, his protected asset, the woman he'd saved. She showered in the beautiful bathroom, using expensive products that had been stocked for her. Her belongings from the apartment hadn't been unpacked yet, but someone had provided her with clothes. Simple but quality pieces in her size. She dressed in dark slacks and a cream blouse, trying to look professional, trying to feel like she belonged in this new role. At 7:55, she made her way through the corridors to Jiwon's private wing. A different security guard than she'd seen before gave her a respectful nod as she approached. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Hahn is expecting you." The private dining room was smaller than she'd imagined, intimate rather than grand. A table for 6, though only 2 places were set. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a garden she'd never seen from this angle, meticulously maintained, peaceful in the morning light. And at the head of the table, reading something on a tablet, sat Han Jiwon. He looked up when she entered, and she was struck again by the intensity of his presence. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, his dark hair precisely styled. But his eyes were what caught her. They tracked her movement as she approached, assessing, calculating, seeing everything. "Good morning," he said, gesturing to the chair at his right rather than the opposite end. "Sit. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted, taking the seat. "The mattress it's very comfortable." "Good." He set aside the tablet. "You'll find your belongings have been delivered to the storage room adjacent to your suite. Take today to settle in, unpack, familiarize yourself with your space. Tomorrow we'll begin your orientation properly." A staff member appeared with fresh coffee, poured for both of them, and disappeared as silently as they'd arrived. Amara wrapped her hands around the warm cup, grounding herself. "I saw the message from Lee Min," she said quietly. "About Derek. About the apartment." Jiwon nodded. "He's being held on $50,000 bail, which he can't afford. He'll likely plead out to avoid serious time, but he'll have conditions. Stay away orders. Probation. And he'll know that I'm watching him. That if he comes near you, the consequences will be severe. This is handled, Amara. You're safe." She wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that Derek's rage couldn't reach her here behind these walls, protected by this man's power. But 18 months of fear didn't evaporate overnight. Breakfast was served, and they ate in a silence that wasn't quite comfortable but wasn't hostile either. Amara found herself hyper-aware of every movement, every sound. The quiet clink of silverware. The way Jiwon ate with precise, controlled motions. The weight of his attention even when he wasn't looking directly at her. "You're nervous," he observed, setting down his fork. "That's natural. But you need to understand something. You're not staff anymore in the traditional sense. You're part of my household, which is different. The other staff will report to you. You'll coordinate with my security team and my personal assistant for scheduling. But you report only to me. That means you'll be in my spaces frequently. You'll see me in contexts that are private and formal. You need to be comfortable with that." "I'll learn," she said, more confidently than she felt. "I know you will." He paused, then added, "You have good instincts. You're observant. You understand discretion. Those qualities are why I chose you. Don't doubt yourself." The unexpected validation made something in her chest tighten. When was the last time anyone had told her she was capable, that they believed in her? She couldn't remember. Over the following 3 weeks, Amara's life transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. The first week was orientation. Lehman walked her through security protocols, teaching her the systems, the codes, the procedures. She learned which areas of the estate were restricted, which were monitored, how to recognize when Jaiwan was in a meeting that couldn't be interrupted versus simply working. She met his personal assistant, a sharp woman named Grace who ran his business calendar with military precision. She learned his preferences in excruciating detail. Coffee at exactly 160 degrees, served in a specific porcelain cup. Classical music when he worked alone. Silence when he had guests. Fresh flowers in his office changed every 3 days, orchids specifically, white or pale purple. The second week, she began actually managing the household. It was more complex than she'd anticipated. The estate ran like a small hotel, with staff schedules to coordinate, supplies to order, maintenance to oversee. But Amara discovered she was good at it. She had an eye for detail, a memory for preferences, and a quiet authority that earned respect from staff who'd initially been resentful of her sudden promotion. By the third week, she'd settled into a rhythm. She rose at 6, reviewed the day's schedule over coffee in her suite, met with Jaiwan at 7:30 to confirm his requirements, and spent her days ensuring the household ran smoothly. The other staff no longer whispered when she passed. Mrs. Chun had declared her a blessing. Even Li Min had given her an approving nod when she'd caught a scheduling conflict that would have caused problems. But it was the unexpected moments that changed everything. Late one evening, 3 weeks into her new life, Amara was bringing Jaiwan his customary tea in his study. He'd been working late, and she'd noticed the light still on as she was finishing her own tasks. She knocked softly, heard his distracted come in, and entered with the tea tray. He wasn't at his desk. He was at the grand piano in the corner of the study, a beautiful instrument she'd dusted countless times as a maid but never heard played. His fingers moved over the keys, pulling out something slow and melancholic, a piece she didn't recognize but that made her chest ache with its sadness. She set the tea on a side table, intending to leave quietly, but his voice stopped her. Stay? It wasn't a command. It was a request, maybe even a plea. She couldn't tell. Amara sat in the leather chair near the piano and simply listened. He didn't stop playing, didn't acknowledge her beyond that one word, just continued drawing sorrow from the instrument, each note precise and controlled even as the melody broke her heart. When he finally finished, the silence felt heavy. Jaiwan's hands remained on the keys for a long moment before he pulled them back, flexing his fingers. You play beautifully, Amara said quietly. My cousin taught me, he replied, still not looking at her. Hannah. She was the musician in the family. I was supposed to be the businessman, the heir. But she insisted I learn. Said everyone needed beauty in their life, even people like me. People like you, Amara repeated. People who live in darkness. His smile was bitter. She saw good in me that I'm not sure exists. After she died, I couldn't touch the piano for 2 years. When I finally could, the only things I could play were the sad songs. The ones that matched what I felt inside. Amara understood then. The music was his grief, his guilt, his only outlet for emotions he kept locked down everywhere else. She felt honored that he'd let her witness it, and terrified by the intimacy of the moment. She loved you very much, Amara said, to teach you something she valued so deeply. And I failed her. Jaiwan finally turned to look at her, and his eyes held a rawness she'd never seen. I was so focused on building power, on proving myself worthy of leading the family, that I didn't see she was drowning. By the time I understood what her boyfriend was doing, it was too late. She was gone. You carry that, Amara said softly. That guilt. That's why you notice things. Why you saw my bandage when no one else did. I noticed because I can't afford not to anymore. He stood, poured himself a drink from the bar. Every woman who walks into my life with bruises, with fear in her eyes, with that careful way of moving that says she's learned to minimize damage. I see, Hannah. And I think, not again. Never again. Is that all I am to you? Amara asked, needing to know. A second chance. A way to assuage your guilt. Jaiwan turned to face her fully, his dark eyes intense. You were that. At first. But you're not anymore. What am I now? He was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with the answer. Someone I look forward to seeing. Someone whose opinion matters. Someone who's become. He paused, searching for the right word, necessary. The air between them felt charged. Amara's heart was pounding, and she couldn't tell if it was fear or something else entirely. The next evening, Jaiwan invited her to dinner. Not breakfast, which had become their routine. Dinner, which felt different. More intimate. She dressed carefully, choosing one of the nicer outfits that had appeared in her closet, and met him in the private dining room at 7. The table was set for 2 with candles, which seemed excessive until she realized it wasn't a romantic gesture. It was simply how Jaiwan preferred to eat in the evenings, with soft lighting and quiet. Still, it felt significant. They talked through the first course, discussing household matters, a minor staffing issue Amara had resolved, upcoming security upgrades Li Min was implementing. Safe, professional topics. But as the meal progressed and wine loosened inhibitions slightly, the conversation shifted. What did you dream of? Jaiwan asked, before Derek. Before survival became your only goal. What did you want? Amara traced the rim of her wine glass, surprised by the question. Culinary school. I wanted to be a chef. Not in some fancy restaurant necessarily. I wanted to cook food that meant something. The kind of food that brings people together, that creates memories. My grandmother taught me to cook, and every meal with her was magic. I wanted to create that for other people. Why haven't you pursued it? Because Derek mocked it. Said it was a waste of time and money. Said I'd never be good enough. And after a while, I started believing him. Started thinking survival was the best I could hope for. Jaiwan's jaw tightened. That muscle jumping that she'd learned meant he was angry. You're going to culinary school. What? Not now. Not immediately. But when you're ready, when you feel stable enough, I'll pay for it. Tuition, supplies, whatever you need. Consider it an investment in someone I value. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever validated her dreams before. No one had ever said you deserve this. Your aspirations matter. I believe in you. Why? She whispered. Why do you believe in me? Because I've watched you, he said simply. I've seen how you handle pressure, how you treat people, how you solve problems. You're stronger than you know, Amara. Derek broke pieces of you, but he didn't break the core. That's still there, still whole. You just need time to remember it. She couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Instead, she did something brave. She reached across the table and touched his hand. Just her fingers on his, the barest contact. Thank you, she said, for seeing me, for believing I'm worth saving. His hand turned over, capturing hers. You're not just worth saving. You're worth investing in. Worth protecting. Worth, he paused, and something shifted in his expression, something vulnerable and uncertain, worth caring about. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibilities neither was quite ready to name. Then Jaiwan pulled his hand back gently, and the spell broke. But something had changed. They both knew it. That night, lying in her comfortable bed in her beautiful suite, Amara admitted something to herself that terrified her. She was developing feelings for Han Jaiwan. Not just gratitude. Not just the relief of being saved. Actual feelings. She looked forward to their morning meetings. She found herself thinking about him throughout the day. She noticed small things, like how he rubbed his temple when he was tired, or how his voice softened when he talked about his family. She wanted to know more about him. Wanted to understand the man behind the controlled intensity. It was dangerous. He was her employer, her protector, a criminal with power built on violence. She had no business falling for him, but her heart didn't seem to care about logic. In his own quarters, Jaiwan stood at his window looking out over the darkened grounds and acknowledged a truth he'd been avoiding. Amara Bennett had become more than a project, more than atonement for failing Hannah. She'd become someone he thought about constantly, someone whose smile affected his mood, someone he wanted to protect not out of guilt, but out of genuine care. He'd spent years keeping everyone at arm's length, maintaining control through emotional distance. But she was slipping past his defenses without even trying. The way she listened when he played piano, the way she touched his hand at dinner with such tentative trust, the way she looked at him like he was more than just the dangerous man everyone feared. It was dangerous. She was vulnerable, rebuilding from trauma. He was the one who held all the power in their arrangement. He couldn't pursue this, couldn't risk damaging her further. But he couldn't stop thinking about her either. Couldn't stop wanting her near. Couldn't stop needing her presence like he needed air. For the first time in years, Han Jaiwan was losing control. And the most terrifying part was that he didn't entirely want to stop it. The warning came on a Tuesday morning, 6 weeks after Amara had moved into the estate. She was reviewing the week's supply orders when Li Min appeared in her small office off the main kitchen, his expression more serious than usual. "Ms. Bennett, we need to discuss a security matter." Her stomach dropped. "Derek." Li Min nodded. "We've received intelligence that Derek Morrison has been making inquiries. He's been talking to former staff members who were let go last year, trying to get information about the estate layout, security protocols, your routines. He's planning something." Amara's hands went cold. "But he's out on bail with conditions. He's not supposed to come near me." "Men like Morrison don't care about court orders," Li Min said bluntly. "Mr. Han has instructed me to increase your security detail. You're not to go anywhere on the grounds without an escort. No morning walks. No evening garden visits. You stay in the main house or your suite. For how long? Until we determine the threat level." Li Min's expression softened slightly. "I know this feels restrictive, but Mr. Han would never forgive himself if something happened to you, because we underestimated Morrison's determination." After Li Min left, Amara sat at her desk trying to control her breathing. She'd started to feel safe here. Had started to believe that Derek was in her past, that the walls and security and Jaiwan's power were enough to keep him away. Now that illusion was shattered, and she was back to looking over her shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That evening, Jaiwan found her in the library, staring out the window at the gardens she was no longer allowed to visit alone. She didn't hear him approach until he spoke. "Li Min briefed you." She turned. "Yes, I understand the precautions." "Do you?" His dark eyes studied her. "Because you look like you want to argue." "I was just starting to feel like myself again," she admitted. "Like I could breathe. And now Derek is reminding you that freedom is conditional." Jaiwan moved to stand beside her at the window. "I'm sorry. This isn't the life I wanted to offer you. You offered me safety. That's what matters. Safety should come with peace," he said quietly. "Not just locked doors and guards. You deserve better." She looked at him, struck by the regret in his voice. "You're doing everything you can. That's more than anyone else has ever done." His hand rose as if to touch her face, then stopped halfway. The moment hung between them, charged with all the feelings they've been carefully not naming. Then his phone buzzed, and the moment broke. The next 2 weeks were tense but quiet. Derek made no moves. Security found no evidence of active planning. Gradually, the heightened protocols relaxed. Amara started taking her morning coffee in the garden again, though always with a guard discreetly positioned nearby. The normality felt fragile, like glass that could shatter any moment. She should have trusted her instincts. It was a Thursday evening, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun set. Amara had finished her duties early and wanted to feel something other than the suffocating awareness of being watched. She texted Li Min that she was going to the garden for 20 minutes. Got back an acknowledgement. The security guard, a young man named Chun, fell into step 10 paces behind her as she walked the gravel paths. The garden was beautiful in the evening light, roses blooming in shades of red and white, the scent of jasmine heavy in the warm air. Amara found her favorite bench near the fountain and sat, closing her eyes, trying to find some measure of peace. She never heard Derek approach. The first indication something was wrong was when Chin's footsteps changed, moving faster. Then Derek's voice, harsh and familiar and full of rage. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" Amara's eyes snapped open. Derek stood 3 feet away, and he wasn't alone. 2 other men flanked him, big and rough-looking, the kind of muscle you hired for violence. And in Derek's hand, catching the dying light, was a knife. Her heart stopped. Blood roared in her ears. She tried to stand, but Derek moved faster, grabbing her arm and yanking her against him, the knife coming to rest against her throat. Cold metal. Sharp. Pressing just hard enough to sting. "You think you're safe here," Derek hissed in her ear, his breath reeking of alcohol. "You think this rich bastard can keep you from me. You're mine, Amara. You've always been mine. And you're coming home." Chin was already moving, hand going to his weapon, but one of Derek's men had a gun trained on him. "Don't," the man warned. "We're not here for you." Amara couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the knife at her throat and Derek's grip bruising her arm and the knowledge that she was going to die here in this beautiful garden. All of Jaiwan's protections, all the walls and guards and power, and Derek had still reached her. Then a voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Let her go. Everyone froze. Amara's eyes tracked to the path. Han Jaiwan stood there, 20 feet away, hands visible at his sides. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, no jacket, looking almost casual except for the lethal intensity radiating from him. He'd come alone, no security visible, and Derek laughed. Look at this. The big man himself. You think you scare me. You think because you have money and muscle you own her. She's my girlfriend. We've been together for 2 years. You can't just steal someone's girl. Jaiwan's expression didn't change. Amara, are you hurt? No, she managed, though the knife pressed harder as Derek tensed. Not yet. Jaiwan's eyes met hers, and she saw something in them that was both terrifying and reassuring. Absolute certainty. He took one step forward. Stay back, Derek warned. I'll cut her. I swear to God I'll cut her right here. No, you won't, Jaiwan said, his voice dropping to something cold and final. Because if you harm her, you don't leave this garden alive. My men have surrounded us while you've been making your threats. You're covered by at least 6 weapons right now. You just can't see them. So your choices are limited. Let her go, and I make your death quick. Or harm her, and I make it slow. Derek's grip tightened on Amara. You're bluffing. Am I? Jaiwan raised his hand slightly, and red laser dots appeared on Derek and his 2 companions. Chest. Head. Perfect sniper positioning. Derek's hired muscle immediately raised their hands, weapons dropping. They understood what Derek's rage wouldn't let him see. They were already dead if they didn't surrender. 3 seconds, Jaiwan said. That's how long you have to release her before I give the order. 3, 2. Derek shoved Amara away violently. She stumbled, nearly falling, and then Jaiwan was there, catching her, pulling her behind him in one smooth motion. Security materialized from the shadows, professional and efficient. Derek's companions were on the ground in seconds, restrained. Derek himself tried to run, but made it maybe 5 steps before he was tackled, the knife clattering away. Jaiwan never took his eyes off Derek as security hauled him to his feet. You came to my property, he said quietly. You threatened what's mine. You put a knife to her throat. Do you understand what you've done? Derek was struggling against the guards holding him, still not understanding the magnitude of his mistake. She's my girlfriend. You can't do this. I'll call the police. I'll tell them everything about you. You'll disappear tonight. Jaiwan continued as if Derek hadn't spoken. New charges will be filed. Breaking and entering. Assault with a deadly weapon. Violation of restraining order. Attempted kidnapping. With your record, you're looking at 10 to 15 years minimum. And if you're very, very lucky, that's all that happens. Because the alternative is that you simply vanish and no one ever finds your body. Derek finally stopped struggling, the reality penetrating through his rage and alcohol. You can't. I already have. Jaiwan stepped closer, and even Amara felt the menace rolling off him. If I ever see you near her again, if you ever speak her name, if you even think about her after tonight, you won't have to worry about prison. You'll just be gone. Do you understand me? Derek's face had gone pale. The guards were already dragging him away, and his hired muscle with him. Jaiwan watched until they were out of sight, then turned to Amara. She was shaking, trembling so hard her teeth chattered. Her throat burned where the knife had pressed, and when she touched it, her fingers came away with a thin line of blood. The sight of it made everything real, made her legs go weak. Jaiwan caught her before she fell. Come with me, he said, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. You're safe now. It's over. He half carried her to his private quarters, not to her suite, but to his own rooms. She was too shocked to protest. A doctor appeared, seemed to materialize from nowhere, checking the cut on her throat. Superficial, just a scratch. Nothing serious. Jaiwan poured her whiskey, the expensive kind that burned and grounded, made her drink it despite her protests. The doctor left. They were alone, and Jaiwan was pacing, his control finally cracking. His hands flexed and released. His jaw was tight. That muscle jumped. He looked like he wanted to hit something, destroy something, hurt someone. This is my fault, he said finally. I should have handled him permanently weeks ago. I should have made sure he could never get within a mile of you. I was too focused on doing things legally, properly, and it almost cost you everything. You saved me, Amara said, her voice hoarse. He was going to kill me, or take me, and you saved me. I almost didn't get there in time. His voice was rough with something she'd never heard from him before. Fear. Shin alerted me the moment he saw Morrison. I ran. If I'd been 1 minute later, if Derek had been more decisive, if... But you weren't late, she interrupted. You were exactly on time. You kept me safe. Like you promised. He stopped pacing and looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the rawness in his eyes. Do you understand what I am? He asked quietly. What I just threatened to do. I told that man I would make him disappear. I meant it. I have the power to do that, Amara. I have the connections, the resources, the men. I can make people vanish without a trace. Does that terrify you? It should, she admitted. 6 weeks ago, it would have. But right now, all I can think is that you used that power to protect me. You could have let security handle it. But you came yourself. You put yourself between me and danger. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Jaiwin was silent for a long moment, struggling with something. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I can't lose you. I told myself this was about Hannah. About not failing again. But that's not the whole truth anymore. It hasn't been for weeks. The truth is I need you safe because he stopped, then forced himself to continue. Because you've become essential to me. To my life. To my peace. I come home and look for you. I plan my day around seeing you. You've become the person I think about when I should be thinking about business. And tonight, when I saw him with that knife at your throat, I understood something. I would burn the world down to keep you safe. Not out of guilt. Not out of obligation. But because losing you would destroy me. Amara's breath caught. She stood slowly, her legs still unsteady, and crossed the space between them. When she reached him, she did what she'd been wanting to do for weeks. She touched his face, her palm against his cheek. I need to tell you something, she said. And it's probably too soon, probably too complicated, but I almost died tonight, so I'm going to say it anyway. I have feelings for you. Not gratitude. Not hero worship. Real feelings. You see me in a way no one ever has. You believe in me. You've given me space to heal and rebuild. And somewhere in these past 6 weeks, I stopped being the woman you saved and started being someone who cares about you. Deeply. Completely. Amara. Her name was a warning and a plea. I know all the reasons this is a bad idea, she continued. I know I'm vulnerable. I know you have the power in this relationship. I know you're dangerous. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel safe and seen and valued. And I'm tired of denying it. I'm tired of pretending that my heart doesn't race when you walk into a room, that I don't look forward to our morning meetings more than anything else in my day, that I don't lie awake thinking about you. His hand came up to cover hers against his face. If we do this, he said quietly, there's no going back. You understand that. You're already under my protection. But if you're mine in truth, that protection becomes absolute. Possessive. I won't share. I won't let you go. I'm not a good man, Amara. I'm not the safe choice. I don't want safe, she replied. I had safe with Derek and it nearly killed me. I want real. I want you. Something in Jaiwin's expression shifted, that careful control finally breaking. Tell me you're sure, he said. Tell me you want this despite everything you know about me. Despite what I am. I'm sure, she said. I want this. I want you. He moved then, closing the last inch between them, his hand sliding into her hair. When he kissed her, it was with the intensity she'd come to expect from him, but there was tenderness underneath. Care. Reverence. Like she was something precious he was afraid of breaking. You're mine, he breathed against her lips. Say it. I'm yours, she agreed, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. And you're mine, she added. All your darkness. All your power. All the things that should scare me, but don't. You're mine too. Forever, he promised, pulling her closer. I'm going to keep you safe forever. Nothing will ever touch you again. She believed him. Believed in the steel of his promise. In the absolute certainty of his protection. Han Jaiwin was dangerous, powerful, capable of terrible things. But he was hers. And she was his. And in this moment, that was all that mattered. Amara woke in Han Jaiwin's bed, morning light filtering through windows that overlooked a view she'd never seen from this angle. For a moment, she was disoriented, then everything from the previous night came rushing back. The attack, the rescue, the confessions, the kiss that had led to more, to falling asleep in his arms feeling safer than she'd ever felt in her life. She turned her head to find him already awake, propped on one elbow, watching her with an intensity that should have been unsettling but wasn't. His dark hair was mussed for the first time since she'd known him, and there was something softer about his expression in the morning light. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Good morning." She felt suddenly self-conscious. Should I go back to my suite? I don't know what the protocol is for this." His hand came to rest on her waist, keeping her in place. "The protocol is that you stay exactly where you are. We need to talk about what happens next." Amara's stomach tightened with anxiety. "Are you regretting last night?" "No." His answer was immediate and certain. "But I need you to understand what this means. What you agreed to. You're not staff anymore, Amara. You're not my household manager. You're mine. And that changes everything." The possessiveness in his voice should have triggered warning bells. Instead, it sent warmth through her chest. "What does it change?" "Everything." He sat up, and she followed, pulling the sheet around herself. "Your role in this house. The way people see you. The way I protect you. You can't be both my employee and," he paused, searching for the right word, "the woman in my life. Those are incompatible. So what am I supposed to do? Just exist here without purpose?" "No. You're going to pursue the things I've been telling you to pursue. Culinary school. Your art. Your own interests. I'm hiring a proper household manager to take over those duties. Your job now is to heal. To grow. To become the woman you were always meant to be before Derek tried to destroy you." Amara felt panic rising. "That sounds like I'm just a kept woman. Like I have no independence, no agency, nothing that's mine." Jaiwan's expression softened. "I'm saying this badly. Let me try again. I don't want you dependent on me out of necessity. I want you choosing to be with me because you want to be. That requires you having your own life, your own accomplishments, your own identity. So yes, I'll provide for you, but not to control you. To free you to discover who you are without survival being your only goal." She studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, but found only sincerity. "You're serious? You want me to have independence?" "Within reason." His honesty was stark. "You're still under my protection, which means security measures are non-negotiable. And being with me comes with inherent restrictions. My enemies will see you as a potential target or leverage. But inside those boundaries, I want you to thrive. Not just survive. Thrive. What if I want to work? What if sitting around being taken care of makes me feel useless? Then we find you meaningful work. Something you choose, not something you need." He took her hand. "I'm not trying to cage you, Amara. I'm trying to give you wings. But I need you to accept that those wings have to stay within my protection. Is that something you can live with?" She thought about it. Really thought about it. He was offering her financial security, safety, the ability to pursue her dreams. But it came packaged with his control, his surveillance, his possession. It wasn't perfect freedom, but it was more freedom than she'd had in 2 years. And it came with something Derek had never offered, respect for who she was and who she wanted to become. "I can live with it," she said finally. "As long as we're clear that I'm choosing this. Not being forced into it. Completely clear." He pulled her close, and she felt his relief. "You're choosing me, and I'm choosing you. Everything else, we figure out together." Later that morning, after breakfast in his quarters, Jaiwan made the announcement to key staff. Grace, his personal assistant. Lee Min, Mrs. Chun, the senior members of the household. Amara Bennett was no longer household manager. She was under his personal protection in a capacity that required complete discretion and respect. A new household manager would be hired. In the meantime, everyone would adjust accordingly. The reactions varied. Grace smiled knowingly, as if she'd seen this coming for weeks. Lee Min gave a respectful nod, his expression suggesting he approved. Mrs. Chin looked delighted, already making plans for some kind of celebration. The younger staff would hear through the grapevine, and Amara knew there would be gossip, but she found she didn't care. Let them talk. She knew the truth of what this was. That evening, Jaiwan took her to meet his family. His mother lived in an estate on the opposite side of the city, elegant and traditional, filled with antiques and the scent of jasmine tea. His younger sister, barely 20, was visiting from university. Both women greeted Amara with formal politeness that masked intense curiosity. Over dinner, Amara was conscious of being evaluated. Jaiwan's mother asked careful questions about her background, her family, her interests. Nothing about Derek, nothing invasive, but Amara understood what was happening. She was being assessed for suitability, for worthiness to be part of the Han family. It was Jaiwan's sister, Mincio, who finally broke the formal tension. "You make him smile," she said suddenly. "I haven't seen him smile like that since Hannah died." The table went quiet. Jaiwan's mother's teacup paused halfway to her lips. But Mincio continued, looking at Amara directly. "He's been so serious for so long. So focused on business and responsibility and carrying the family. But tonight, watching him with you, he looks lighter. So thank you. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "Mincio," Jaiwan said, a warning in his tone. "No, it's true." His sister's eyes were bright with emotion. "Mom knows it too. She just won't say it." Jaiwan's mother set down her teacup carefully. "What Mincio is trying to say, with more tact than she's currently showing, is that we're grateful to see you happy, son. And if Ms. Bennett is the reason, then she's welcome in this family." After dinner, as Jaiwan and Amara prepared to leave, his mother pulled Amara aside. A private moment in the garden while Jaiwan talked business with his uncle. "You know what he does?" his mother said quietly. "What this family is." "Yes," Amara replied. "And you're not afraid." "I was at first. But I've learned that his darkness serves a purpose. It protects people. It keeps order. And with me, he's only ever been protective, never threatening." Hannah's death nearly destroyed him, his mother continued. He blamed himself for not seeing the signs, for being too focused on proving himself as the family heir. He's been carrying that guilt for 5 years. You're the first person I've seen him allow close since then. The first person who makes him look like my son instead of the head of a criminal empire. Please be patient with his overprotectiveness. It comes from love and loss, not control. "I understand," Amara said. "And I'll take care of him too. That's what this is. We take care of each other." His mother smiled, the first genuine warmth Amara had seen. "Good. Then you have my blessing." Over the following months, Amara's life settled into a new rhythm. She enrolled in culinary school, attending classes 3 days a week with Li Min's most trusted guard accompanying her. She discovered she loved it, loved the precision and creativity, loved seeing her skills develop. She set up her studio in the converted room Jaiwan had given her and painted again, really painted, for the first time in years. She video chatted with her mother weekly, seeing her healthy and happy in her new apartment, her medical bills paid, her stress lifted. And she fell deeper in love with Han Jaiwan. Not the infatuation of rescue, not the gratitude of safety, but real love, built through shared dinners and late-night conversations and quiet moments in his study while he worked and she read. Love built through him respecting her boundaries and her respecting his need for control. Love built through trust earned daily. He took her to art galleries and expensive restaurants. He listened to her talk about her classes and asked intelligent questions. He made space for her in his life in ways that felt genuine. And at night, in his bed or sometimes hers, he was tender and passionate and possessive in ways that made her feel cherished. But there were hard moments too. Moments when his work frightened her, when men came to the estate with violence in their eyes, and she remembered what he was capable of. Moments when his protectiveness felt suffocating and they argued about boundaries. Moments when she wondered if she'd traded one cage for another. But they always talked through it, always found compromise. And slowly, she came to understand that what they had was complex and imperfect and real. He would always be a dangerous man. She would always carry scars from what Derek had done. But together, they were healing each other. It was a Saturday evening, 3 months after Derek's arrest, when Jaiwan asked her to walk with him in the garden. The same garden where she'd nearly died. But it had been reclaimed, made safe again, and now it was where they often spent evenings together. He led her to the fountain, where roses bloomed in the warm air and the water sparkled in the setting sun. He seemed nervous, which was so unlike him that Amara felt her own anxiety spike. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "No, nothing's wrong." He took her hands in his. "Everything is remarkably right, actually, which is why I need to ask you something." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Amara's breath stopped. "I'm not good at romantic speeches," he said, opening the box to reveal a ring. Elegant, a single diamond flanked by smaller stones. Beautiful, but not ostentatious. "So I'll just be honest. I want you to be my wife. Not because of protection or arrangement, but because I love you. Because you've given me something I didn't think I'd ever have again. Purpose beyond empire. Peace beyond control. You've made my life worth living for reasons that have nothing to do with power. I want to build something good with you, Amara. Something that lasts." Will you marry me? She was crying before he finished. Crying and laughing and feeling like her heart might burst. You love me, she whispered, needing to hear it again. Completely. His intensity was absolute. Irrevocably. Obsessively, if I'm being honest. You're mine, Amara. And I want the world to know it. Legally. Permanently. Yes, she managed through tears. Yes, I'll marry you. I love you too. Even the parts of you that should scare me. Especially those parts, because they're the parts that kept me alive. He slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You're mine, he said against her hair. You were mine from the moment I saw that bandage on your face and decided I wouldn't let another woman die on my watch. But now you're mine by choice, by love, by promise. Nothing will ever take you from me. And you're mine, she replied, pulling back to look at him. All your darkness, all your control, all your impossible devotion. Mine. Forever. Forever, he agreed, and kissed her with the intensity that had become familiar, that had become home. The wedding was small, private, held at the estate 6 weeks later. Amara's mother cried through the entire ceremony. Jaiwan's family welcomed her formally into the Han name. Li Min served as best man, looking quietly pleased. Grace caught the bouquet and teased Amara about starting a trend. It was perfect in its simplicity. Derek's trial had concluded 2 weeks prior. 15 years, with conditions that ensured he'd never be able to contact Amara again. Jaiwan had made certain of that through legal channels and less legal promises that ensured Derek understood the consequences of ever trying. On their wedding night, in quarters that were now fully theirs together, Jaiwan pulled Amara close and just held her. No urgency, just quiet possession. A year ago, you were counting money in a secret account, trying to save enough to disappear, he said quietly. Wearing bandages to cover what he did to you. Invisible in a house full of people. Now look at you. Now look at us, she corrected. A year ago, you were alone in your grief and guilt, carrying Hannah's death like a weight you'd never put down. Now you're healing too. We're healing each other. He touched her face where that first bandage had been, the skin unblemished now, the bruises long faded. This, he said, this is where it started. The moment I couldn't look away. The moment you stopped being invisible. Best bandage I ever wore, she said with a smile. Best day I ever noticed, he replied. They fell asleep tangled together, safe in the fortress he'd built, protected by power and love in equal measure. The woman who'd been invisible had become everything. The man who'd lived in darkness had found his light. And together, they'd built something neither had dared to hope for. A year later, Amara stood in the kitchen of the restaurant she'd opened with Jaiwan's backing, a small intimate space that served the kind of food she'd always dreamed of creating. Food that brought people together. Food that made memories. Critics called it magical. Customers called it the best meal they'd ever had. She called it freedom. Jaiwan appeared in the doorway, impeccable as always in his dark suit, and smiled at the sight of her in chef's whites, commanding her kitchen with the same quiet authority he commanded his empire. She crossed to him, kissed him despite the dinner rush happening behind her, and saw the pride in his eyes. How's business? He asked. Perfect, she replied. How's yours? Perfect, he echoed. His hand found hers, thumb brushing over her wedding band. Ready to come home. Always, she said. They left together, his security detail falling in around them, and drove back to the estate that had gone from prison to sanctuary to home. That night, in their bed, he held her close and breathed her in like she was the air he needed to survive. You're mine, he whispered, the words a ritual now, a promise renewed daily. And you're mine, she replied, as she always did. Forever. Forever, he agreed. The bandage that had changed everything was long gone. But the life it had revealed, the love it had led to, the future it had made possible, remained. Amara Bennett had walked into the Han estate invisible and terrified, marked by violence, counting the days until escape. She'd walked out Amara Han, seen and cherished and strong, marked only by love, counting her blessings instead of her bruises. And in the possession of a dangerous man, she'd found the safest place she'd ever known. Not despite his darkness, but because of it. Because his darkness was the shield that kept her light burning bright. And that made all the difference.